They had a young son together, and they were kind of looking forward to a night out.
There's surveillance video of her inside the bar as well as outside, and it's at that point where she gets up and exits the patio and is last seen leaving towards the west.
Stark County 911, what is the address for your emergency?
We just found a human body laying in the street.
Okay.
We know where she is or whatever.
We have an explosive new trial for you out of Wisconsin.
This is the most brutal murder that has ever been committed by one person in the history of Brown County.
Doug murdered Nicole in a fit of jealousy and anger, fueled by insecurity, alcohol, and numerous other drugs.
You knew all along what happened to Nikki.
No, I did not.
All Nikki wanted was a ride home. A ride home. That's her baby.
Your wife is in a bar. You said she's unresponsive.
This is what he's going to tell you.
How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything? We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
Friday, Saturday nights, a good nighttime party life here in downtown Green Bay.
And on this warm spring night, the action is at a place called the Watering Hole.
It's a friendly atmosphere, but it's really large. A lot of people can fit inside.
Somewhere among the hundreds of people dancing and rocking out with a band from California, the Steel Panthers, is a young woman who would not live to see the dawn of the next day. Her name was Nicole Vanderheiden, Nikki, at the concert with her live-in boyfriend, Doug.
They had a young son together, and they were kind of looking forward to a night out, and it started off really well from what we know.
But both of them were drinking heavily, police would later say, especially Nikki.
Plus, she was breastfeeding. She had a young son, so her tolerance probably wasn't what it used to be.
When the concert ends, Nikki and friends head to another bar, the Sardine Can, with Doug saying he will catch up shortly.
There's surveillance video of her inside the bar as well as outside. She can be seen on the video dancing, having a good time.
But still, no Doug.
And we know that there were text messages between her and Doug accusing him of staying behind, maybe talking to other women.
Nicole was starting to get irritated and upset with Doug because here she is with all of Doug's friends and she doesn't know them very well. And her boyfriend, who she wanted to spend the night with, is not there. Eventually they move outside to an outside patio area, and it's at that point where she gets up and exits the patio and is last seen leaving towards the west.
A friend tried to stop her and confront her, but just couldn't get her to stop or listen, and she just kind of kept walking down the road by herself.
What happened next would not soon be forgotten in this small city in the American Midwest.
Stark County 911, what is the address for your emergency?
We just found a human body laying in the street.
Okay. Person beyond help, or do I need to give you instructions for CPR?
No, it's beyond help. It's starting to decay.
Is it a male or a female?
It's got long hair, but I didn't go near it.
You couldn't even tell who it was. Her face was completely black and blue. She had more than 240 injuries from what had happened.
The only articles of clothing that were left on her body was a sock on each foot, and then there was like a pinkish colored bracelet that you'd get from like an event on one of her wrists.
Brown County Public Safety, this is Therese.
It was 3 hours later when another call came in to 911.
Yes. How do I go about, missing persons?
It was Nikki's boyfriend, Doug.
Okay, and who's missing?
It's my girlfriend, and she does live with me, and she's never done this before.
What's her name?
Nicole Vanderheiden.
Now, Detective Brian Slinger had a name for the victim and a name for a likely suspect.
And what's your name?
Doug Dietrich.
They had already found the body, and here they have someone calling saying that they can't find their girlfriend.
Obviously, there were some things that were concerning to us. Why did you wait so long to make this phone call, especially when you have a newborn baby at the house that needs mother's attention?
So it kind of painted a picture that maybe Doug had done this.
An officer was dispatched to Doug Dietrich's home.
I'm here for a missing persons report.
We used a audio-video recording device to record it so that we could get a look at him. We focused on his hands, we focused on the general condition of his body, focused on the condition of his house, his behaviors.
Dietrich was not told about the discovery of a body just 3 miles away.
Do you suspect any foul play? If so, why?
I don't know. I don't suspect it, but just the area she walked in, definitely don't like.
Okay.
His story was he went to bed, woke up once or twice through the night to use the bathroom and to take care of the baby, and woke up the next morning, 10, 11 o'clock, somewhere in there, and she still wasn't home.
Dietrich had not called in the missing person report until 4 in the afternoon.
I'd be lying if I said we weren't alarmed with his level of concern. The level of concern did not seem to match what it should be, I guess.
So that night, detectives got a warrant to search the home Doug and Nikki shared.
It's probably the first person you look to, the boyfriend, the fact that there was a falling out that night. Mr. Dietrich obviously was a person of interest right away.
And Dietrich was brought to the sheriff's office for what would be a grueling 3-hour late-night interrogation. The detectives, Brian Slinger and Lee Kingston, wanted to know why Doug had waited so long to call in the missing persons report.
I wasn't feeling good all day. I was hungover and feeling like shit, and then not wondering. I was thinking she went off with another guy, whatever. All this shit going through my mind.
After about 2 hours, the detectives finally tell Dietrich about the body found in the nearby farm field.
I don't think it's been 100% identified as her, but there's a lot of similarities. What do you mean a lot of similarities? There's a physical description, height, blonde, belly button ring.
They are watching him closely to see his reaction before asking him, essentially, if he killed her.
And you don't know where she is or what happened to her? Not a clue. Did you do anything to cause her to go missing? No, not at all. Besides being an asshole a little bit on the phone,
Now, the detectives raise the stakes, telling Doug Dietrich they want the clothes he was wearing that night when he was out with Nikki, and that they are already searching his house for evidence of a murder.
Is there anything when they go search your house, is they're going to find anything in their house they're going to find that's going to say you had anything? Absolutely nothing whatsoever. I have nothing to do with this.
For the next half hour, as the detectives watch, Doug Dietrich sobs almost uncontrollably, at one point saying he is scared.
Just try to relax. You're scared? I want her back. She needs to go back. Help me.
Were they the tears of a grieving boyfriend, or the tears of someone who is scared he has been caught?
Every last resource. I will find them, Nikki. I will find them. I love you. I love you. I loved you. I really did.
Green Bay, Wisconsin is all about its football team, the Green Bay Packers.
Pretty much anywhere you go around here, it's Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, if you don't love the Packers, you might get booted out. It's green and gold here for days and days and days.
But the stadium was empty. The football season had not yet started. On the spring weekend, Nikki Vanderheiden was killed. And so her brutal murder was all anyone talked about.
Many people said, how can such a brutal crime take place in Green Bay, Wisconsin? How can somebody commit such a random act in our community?
Not in my backyard,
It was very scary. I mean, can't think of anything worse. A random attack like that on a young lady at bar close, in a small 100,000 person community. And
the shock of Nicole Vanderheiden's death was felt throughout this family-friendly city.
By all accounts, she was a very good teacher, and she was an excellent mother, a smiler, somebody who they said would light up a room.
Nikki was the mother of 3, 2 from a previous marriage, and the third, 6-month-old Dylan, with her live-in boyfriend, Doug Dietrich.
She really cared about her kids and would never have done anything to put them in harm's way or in jeopardy or to leave them alone.
The first big break in the case came with a call from 2 joggers out for a morning run, coincidentally caught on a student driver's dashboard camera.
We were out jogging that morning at about 5:30, and we had to jump over a pool of blood in the road. And if you look close on the right-hand side, you can see where the blood and stuff is.
And then a neighbor found more of the grisly evidence on his lawn, including a wire cord he had run over with his lawnmower.
That's absolutely where the murder took place. The blood that was collected there, the hair samples, and then that cord that was found, which we believe is like a phone charging cord, came back all positive with Nicole Vanderheiden's blood DNA.
And then detectives began to hear from Nikki's friends and relatives that Doug had been abusive to Nikki.
She's been very depressed lately. Why has she been depressed?
Her sister Heather said Doug drank heavily and used cocaine.
And then my mom said that 2 weeks ago she told her that he has been beating her. She asked, has he ever hit you? She said, yeah. And my mom said, you need to come away with me, you're going to go to home. And she didn't.
And one of Doug's former girlfriends, Rebecca Mott, came forward to tell detectives how Doug could be jealous and often violent.
We got in a fight, tackled me, and I broke my ankle. He would, throw stuff, break stuff, but I would too.
He wasn't the most stand-up citizen or the best boyfriend by any means.
And now the search warrant at Doug's home began to produce results.
Nicole had some significant prints on her back that appeared to be a shoe, which is like a herringbone pattern that's common on the bottom of Air Jordan or Nike Jordan shoes. We located a pair of shoes in Mr. Dietrich's garage that had that similar pattern on them, that also had some red staining, red drops on the bottom of them that we figured was consistent with blood.
And inside of Nikki's car, parked in the garage, was what appeared to be blood splatter, blood drops in the back seat.
We were pretty confident at that time that Doug was responsible. Our theory at the time was that somehow Nicole got home, there was a disturbance or some sort of disagreement out in the street or in the driveway, and then the theory was that Doug used her vehicle, which was in the garage, to transport the body.
At 7:03 p.m., attempting contact with Doug Dietrich. What's the address?
Less than 72 hours after Nikki's body had been discovered, Detective Brian Slinger was on his way to Doug Dietrich's house to arrest him for murder.
We'll talk down there and I'll kind of explain to you what's going on.
He was he was emotional. He had the chance to speak to a family attorney prior to his arrest, so there was no interview after his arrest. He was just transported to the jail.
Doug Dietrich's arrest for the murder of his girlfriend sent another shockwave through Green Bay.
He comes from a pretty well-off family here in the area. He had a pretty good life, and so people just thought he was kind of, a rich kid, kind of getting away with what he wanted.
Dietrich had no alibi for his whereabouts that fateful night when Nikki walked off into the darkness. And the friend who was with him that night, Greg Matthew, appeared to the detectives to be evasive about Doug's movements.
We
Because I'm going to tell you that there's no doubt in anybody's mind that the evidence shows that your friend, Doug, had involvement in her murder. There's no doubt about it, okay?
And the friend became upset when detectives asked him about Doug's whereabouts in the hour before the babysitter, Dallas, said Doug had returned home.
Who can vouch for you for the 60 minutes before you showed up and made contact with Dallas? Who can vouch you for that? What is this 60 minutes? 1 hour. I'm asking for a 1 hour period of time. Who can vouch for where you were if your phone is dead? Thank you, guys. So nobody. That's your alibi? Nobody. That's your alibi. Your alibi is the guy that's in custody for murder.
The evidence against Doug Dietrich was building, but the case was about to take another dramatic turn, all because of something the detectives saw on this body cam video of Doug Dietrich when he first reported Nikki missing.
Breaking news on the case of the Brown County woman whose body was found in a farm field.
16 days after he had been arrested for the murder of his girlfriend Nikki, Doug Dietrich was released from jail.
Doug, how do you feel?
He's not going to have any comment. People were really shocked and were like, what are police doing? How can they let a murderer go when we know, or we thought we knew, that he was the one that did it?
But behind the scenes, the case against him had completely fallen apart.
A lot of what changed was we were getting evidence back from the crime lab. There's a lack of physical evidence tying Doug to her body, to her clothing.
The blood found on his Air Jordan shoes was not that of Nikki Vanderheiden, but that of a turkey.
Who would have known he would have went turkey hunting a week or two prior and there'd be turkey blood in the garage.
The blood found in Nikki's car wasn't hers, but that of her daughter. And the vehicle couldn't have been used to move the body, as police first theorized.
We're able to find out that that car did not move that entire weekend.
And then the clincher.
We went back and looked at the videos, and we had noticed that Mr. Dietrich was wearing his Fitbit the day that we interviewed him at the house when he called in the missing person. We started thinking about, can we get the data off that Fitbit to show was he moving around that night?
The device was turned over to crime technician Tyler Bailey.
Fitbit is an activity tracker that you wear on your wrist, similar to a watch or a bracelet. There was a short amount of steps recorded in the middle of the night, consistent with, someone getting up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. And then after that, there was another period where there was no movement recorded from the Fitbit.
Doug Dietrich's Fitbit confirmed his alibi.
And there was no way he would have gotten up in the middle of the night, went out into the front yard, committed a brutal murder, drove a couple miles away, and then came back home.
Detective Brian Slinger had worked hard to destroy his own case and clear Doug Dietrich of the crime, but still felt bad about first arresting an innocent man for murder.
He missed the funeral, he missed certain things, he was painted as this, and I think, anyone would be lying or they said they didn't feel slightly bad about it.
Okay, well then who do they think did this? Is this person still out there? Are they in the community? I think it was pretty scary for people living in that area too to realize that, okay, if Doug didn't do it, who did and where is this person?
And the key was to find whoever met up with Nikki Vanderheiden sometime after she walked away from this downtown bar and then killed her. Police didn't have a clue.
We reenacted it numerous times, we walked the path, and she kind of walked off into darkness, and that's kind of where we were at.
It would be 2 full months before a breakthrough.
Got a call from the crime lab telling me that they were able to get enough DNA off of one of the socks, of all things, from her body to enter it into the CODIS system.
The CODIS system is a nationwide registry of DNA collected by the FBI. Anyone who has ever been arrested will be in there.
And they got a hit from the state of Virginia for George Stephen Birch.
George Stephen Birch had been arrested in Norfolk, Virginia in 2001 for murder, but was acquitted at trial. He had 5 other criminal convictions and was on probation for one of them, requiring him to stay in Virginia.
I'm thinking, is this a transient? Is this a truck driver that may have been in the area for the weekend? How is someone from Virginia's DNA showing up in Green Bay?
What the investigators did not know was that George Birch had been living in Green Bay for some 3 months, in this house, the home of Linda and Edward Jackson.
I met him long time ago back in upstate New York. Him and his wife were separating, and he knew I was doing very well out here, so he asked me if he could come out and get a fresh start.
He was extremely polite. He called me Miss Linda, and I kind of liked that. Just very personable, very, very personable.
Birch was a regular at a bar 3 blocks away from the Jackson home, a place called Richard Cranium's.
He was so fun-loving, you know. Everybody at Richard Cranium's called him Big Country, and he was 6'8", tall guy, but very friendly.
He was always, I guess you'd say, very charming towards the girls. He had no problem with walking up to any girl and just talking with them and striking up a conversation.
The Jacksons say they had no idea the man staying in their home was being sought in the Nikki Vanderheiden murder investigation. In fact, Ed Jackson and George Birch had gone fishing the very day her body was discovered.
Oh, he was real happy. He had a big smile on his face and holding it up. And that picture actually played a big part in it also, because when you focus in on it and you look at his right hand, you can see the cuts on his knuckles.
But detectives only learned that Birch was in Green Bay after he seemingly outsmarted himself.
We had no contact with him with the Sheriff's Department. However, Green Bay Police Department did have one contact with him from right around that time frame.
It was from a minor hit-and-run traffic accident involving a Chevy Blazer that belonged to the Jacksons. When the vehicle was found, the front seat had been set on fire. It was the same vehicle Birch drove the night of the murder.
And at that point, the Jacksons called in for a stolen vehicle. And the last person to use that vehicle was George Birch. And he said that, oh, I must have left the keys in the car. Somebody must have stolen it.
But now George Birch's name was in the police department database, along with his address.
So I jumped in my car and ran out to that house, and there he is, standing on the porch smoking a cigarette.
And even better, he had given his cell phone to the police to clear his name in the earlier investigation.
It basically mapped out his night and gave us a lot of the answers that we needed to have.
The GPS app from the phone showed Birch spent most of the night at his favorite haunt, Richard Cranium's, where detectives believe he met Nikki Vanderheiden.
She was just looking for a ride home, and then he ended up bringing her home and sexually assaulting her in front of her residence. She's inside of a vehicle, fell out the passenger side onto the ground, which is where he proceeded to curb stomp her, or stomp her head into the ground, stomp her back into the ground, which is how the footprints would have gotten, shoe prints would have gotten on her back. And then the phone moved and went directly from Nicole's residence to the scene where the body was located. So his phone showed him at every single crime scene location and basically mapped out that night for us.
Now authorities were sure they finally had the right person who had taken Nikki off the quiet streets of Green Bay and killed her.
Breaking news out of Green Bay today. 38-year-old George Birch was arrested this morning for the murder of Nicole Vanderheiden. Investigators say Birch has been tied to the scene of the crime with forensic evidence.
George, must stand up for me. I'm just going to take you back some more time, and I'll see if we can handcuffs up to you.
But George Birch was a cool customer, showing little emotion once he was in custody. At 6'8", 270 pounds, towering over Detective Brian Slinger as his handcuffs were removed.
I told him that he was under the arrest for the murder of Nicole Vanderheiden, and I wanted to speak to him about that. His face didn't change one bit.
Okay, so is this something that you want to talk to me about? Sir? What's that? You don't want to talk to me about that? So if I read your Miranda rights, you don't want to talk to me? So I would prefer a lawyer. Okay.
But once at trial, George Birch would have plenty to say, offering a version of the night that would turn the trial into a real whodunit.
George, did you murder Nicole Vanderheiden?
No, sir. Definitely not.
You know who did?
Doug Dietrich.
Now both men would be on trial.
We have an explosive new trial for you out of Wisconsin. It's taken the nation and all media outlets by storm.
Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen.
It was 40-year-old George Birch who was on trial for the murder that had shocked the city of Green Bay, Wisconsin.
That a violent, ruthless killer could do
what we believe the evidence will show Mr. Birch did to Nikki Vanderheiden.
But the lawyers for George Birch sought to turn the tables on the prosecution case.
The defense came out swinging. We're going to show you how horrible Douglas Dietrich is.
Telling the jury it was Nikki's boyfriend, Doug Dietrich, not George Birch, who had the motive to kill her, just as investigators had first believed.
Doug murdered Nicole in a fit of jealousy and anger, fueled by insecurity, alcohol, and numerous other drugs. The evidence is going to show you Doug did this. At the very least, it's going to give you significant doubt about whether or not George did this.
And so, for 2 full days, Doug Dietrich was on the witness stand, once again having to defend himself.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Prosecutor David Lassay took him through what happened the night of the concert. The couple drinking and dancing and happy, leading up to a dramatic moment.
Doug, when was the last time that you personally saw Nikki alive?
It was going to the bathroom, see you in 10 minutes, whatever, you know? And that's the last time I saw her.
The prosecutor paused to let Doug Dietrich's emotion play out. From the bench, Judge John Sikowski, a former district attorney himself, appreciated what the prosecution was trying to do to overcome a major challenge.
It would be the fact that Dietrich was originally arrested. He would have had more of a motive. He would have been a likely suspect.
Do you have absolutely any involvement in Nikki's disappearance or death?
No, I did not.
Thank you. No further questions at this time.
But the cross-examination of Doug Dietrich would be aggressive and brutal, starting with text messages he had sent to his mother just before the night that he felt trapped by Nikki.
I don't recall that that conversation.
How about when you told her, I'm very seriously thinking about telling Nikki and the kids they have to move. I'm not cut out for this life one bit. Do you remember that?
I remember, I think I sent something on the lines of that, and I was having a little downer day or whatever, and I just said that to my mom with not truly meaning it, I guess.
Did you often say things you didn't mean to your mom?
I mean, yeah, sometimes I would, yeah. I mean, it is my mom. I'm very close to her, and
So since you're close to your mom, that means you lie to your mom?
No, I don't say I would lie. I mean, maybe sometimes, but...
And then to the text messages Nikki sent to him that night when he had not shown up.
Did you hurt Nikki that night?
Do you mean physically or what? No, I mean...
Did you physically beat her in the past?
No, I never physically beat Nikki.
So you just have no idea why she would say these things?
Exactly.
With Doug Dietrich back on the stand for day 3, the cross-examination turned to why he had waited so long to call friends or family or police when he woke up early the next morning and Nikki wasn't there, suggesting he already knew she was dead because he killed her.
Did you search for Nikki on foot or by vehicle?
No, I did not.
Still didn't call the police?
I did not at that time, no.
Because you knew you didn't have to?
And now boring in on his actions when police did arrive.
And then you made sure that before police arrived, you took a shower?
Yeah, yep. I mean, I was feeling grubby and, needed to wake up and...
You wanted to hide any proof that you were involved in her murder, so you took a shower before the police came.
And then a final stab to make sure the jury knew that police, too, had at first believed Doug Dietrich killed Nikki.
They knew she was murdered 118 feet from your house.
I don't know what they knew at that point.
You knew all along what happened to Nikki.
No, I did not.
That's when the Brown County Sheriff's Office arrested you and told you were under arrest for the murder of Nicole Vanderheiden.
That is correct.
I have no further questions.
The defense had planted its seeds of doubt.
Look, it's a classic jilted lover gets vengeance story.
Yeah.
It's classic. It's as old as time itself, this story.
But the defense still had to find a way to deal with the overwhelming forensic evidence against George Burch, including his DNA on Nicky's sock and the GPS data pings on his phone showing his travels to and from the crime scene.
The evidence that the state clearly presented was difficult to overcome that.
And so it was no surprise when his lawyers called George Burch to testify.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am. Given the situation here, especially given the scientific evidence, Burch almost had to testify. And I think what he had to try to do was fashion a story that would somehow explain away the physical and scientific evidence.
He wore a tie and tried to come across as a gentle giant.
George Burch on the stand, sometimes he seemed likable.
But sheriff's deputies were concerned that Burch was no likable, gentle giant.
Burch is wearing a stun belt underneath his clothes so that it's controlled by remote control. They can provide an electric shock to him in case he acts out in the courtroom.
Hey, George.
How you doing?
Good. You've been sitting here for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Probably have a lot you want to explain to the jury.
Yes, sir.
Burch described meeting Nicky at his regular hangout, Richard Cranium's.
I was flirting.
And how was she acting towards you?
Somewhat the same, pretty much. Flirting back and forth with each other.
Burch said they left together and ended up outside her house, where he says they had sex in the back of his Chevy Blazer before someone attacked both him and Nicky.
The next thing I remember was the person behind me had been saying, the first thing I was coherent to me that I could hear them say was, "Look what the you made me do."
Did you know if she was alive or dead at that point?
I didn't know if she was alive. There was a lot of blood on her face, come out of her mouth, on her back.
And again, at that point, did you know who that individual was?
Never seen him before in my life.
Do you know who that individual is now?
Now I do.
Who was it?
It was Doug Dietrich.
And he said Dietrich then ordered him at gunpoint to put Nicky's lifeless body in his Blazer and drop it in a nearby farm field.
What was Dietrich doing at this point?
He was standing behind me with he still had the firearm in his hands, pretty much directing me what to do.
Burch's testimony, if the jury believed it, would explain perfectly why his DNA was on Nicky's sock, why his phone GPS data showed him at the crime scene and at the farm field.
George, did you murder Nicole Vanderheiden?
No, sir. Definitely not.
Do you know who did?
Doug Dietrich.
The final day of the trial was being televised live, locally and nationally.
We're going to be covering the George Burch case today. There's a lot at stake with this story.
So many twists and turns. People were so intrigued by it because they didn't think that this could happen in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
And Nicole's family and Doug Dietrich and his family were in the courtroom for what would be the dramatic high point.
Cross-examination.
The cross-examination of George Burch by prosecutor David Lassay.
What really happened was you drove Nicole home 20 miles away from where you lived, fully expecting that you were going to have sex, right? That was your expectation. You were going to have sex. That's why you're driving her home, right?
I was hoping that we would. It was leading from what had happened before and where we had spoken. It seemed like that's what was going to happen.
When you get there, and it becomes clear that Nicky isn't going to have sex with you, when she attempts to go into her house and leave your vehicle, that's when your mood changes, right?
No, sir.
That's when things get aggressive, don't they?
Not at all.
That's when you grab that cord and strangle her, don't you?
No, sir, not at all.
That's when Nikki gets slammed on the ground repeatedly when she's trying to run toward her house, when those bloodstains lead in the direction back to her home.
None of that is true.
Well, how do you know? You were out cold when Nikki was assaulted.
Because you said I did it.
And the next day, you're going fishing with your buddy with a smile on your face and not a care in the world.
It was a pre-planned event, sir, and I wouldn't say not a care in the world. That definitely would not be something I would say.
No further questions.
It had been almost 2 years since that spring night when Nicole Vanderheiden and her boyfriend Doug were at the Steel Panthers concert. Since she sent the angry text to Doug. Since she walked off into the night. Since Doug was arrested for murder and then released when his Fitbit gave him an alibi. And since authorities tracked down George Stephen Birch after finding his DNA on Nikki's sock and on a wire cord used to strangle her. The case was about to go to a jury that would have to decide whose story to believe, that of Doug Dietrich.
Did you have absolutely any involvement in Nikki's disappearance or death?
No, I did not.
Or that of George Birch.
George, did you murder Nicole Vanderheiden?
No, sir. Definitely not.
Prosecutor Mary Kerrigan Maris presented the state's closing argument.
This is clearly a whodunit case.
Ridiculing the defense's case.
Their explanation is ridiculous and it's insulting to your intelligence. He tries to make you believe this encounter was consensual as far as sexual activity. Killing her is not enough. He seeks to defame her. Her life's gone, so let's go after her reputation. She's not here to counter these outrageous claims. That's very convenient for him. Nikki did not give up easily. She showed her spirit through the end. Nikki did not go gently into the night. We ask you to return a verdict of guilty for first-degree intentional homicide. Thank you.
In his closing argument, George Birch's lawyer, Lee Chuchart, did not back down from pointing the finger at Doug Dietrich.
Justice for Nicole is not going to be delivered by a wrongful conviction of George Birch. Just because a story sounds ridiculous or sounds unbelievable doesn't mean it is. And I ask that you focus on all the evidence in this case, that you don't continuously ignore that the state arrested Doug Dietrich and there's a full-scale investigation into Doug Dietrich. We've seen the evidence. We've seen him testify. He had the motive, the opportunity, and the connection to this crime. The first piece of evidence I ask that you focus on is when Doug Dietrich actually called the police.
Yes. How do I go about, this missing person?
He didn't call the police until after Nikki's body was found. He knew why. He didn't want the police to come. He was trying to cover up what he did. As we sit here right now, you are literally surrounded by doubt. You are surrounded by reasonable doubt. That's why you must return a verdict of not guilty.
Both sides expected the jury would need several days to review all the evidence and conflicting testimony.
They got the case this afternoon after closing arguments from both sides, and we're waiting to see exactly how long they're going to deliberate today.
Very unusual dynamic in the sense that it's not just did this one do it, it's which of the two did it.
The jury was back after only 3 hours.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we've been advised that you've reached a verdict. Is that correct? The verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, George Stephen Birch, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, is charged in the information.
He just hung his head a little bit, but I don't remember him crying or showing much emotion.
And jurors told reporters it had all come down to exhibit number 23, that piece of wire cord almost thrown away after being run over by a neighbor's lawnmower.
They said, that is what sealed the deal for them, because Doug's DNA was not found on that wire, but Nicole Vanderheiden's was, and so was George Birch's.
For an emotional 2 hours, Judge John Sikowski heard from Nikki's friends and family and from Doug Dietrich's mother, Diane.
I have a hard time driving on Hoffman Road. The sight where Birch threw Nikki away like she didn't even matter. She did matter. We loved her and we missed her. All Nikki wanted from him was a ride home. A ride home. Back to Doug, back to her baby. In closing, please go home today. Hug your loved ones. Tell them you love them. Show them you love them.
Nobody came to court to speak for George Birch, and now, wearing his orange prison jumpsuit, he declined to speak for himself.
No, sir, Your Honor.
You know, I just a thought, Mr. Birch. You said yes, sir, and no, sir. The manly thing would have been to say, I did it, I flipped out, I did whatever. Cop a plea, do something, and step up to the plate. You chose not to do that. You still haven't done that.
And then, just before passing sentence, the judge had one final comment about George Birch's behavior.
Drop the body off in a field, and then 12 hours later go on a boat and be smiling like nothing happened. Like you didn't have a care in the world. How can we explain that? That isn't human. That is not normal. In Wisconsin, we have life without parole, and that was the maximum sentence that could be imposed, and that's what happened. This is the most brutal murder that has ever been committed by one person in the history of Brown County. That's how severe this case is. This is a crime that would, I believe, merit the death penalty, and for that you have to die in prison.